Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Wealth Defense Radio, the podcast. I am your host, Josh Inahosa, and I am an independent advisor representative for Swan DFW, which is the company that puts on this podcast, and that stands for Sleep Well at Night, which is something that our original customers came up with.
Yeah. When I asked them what they wanted me to do, they said, well, we're never going to get rich. We just want to sleep well at night. Okay.
Yep. And the other person you see here is the man...
Or here.
Or here.
Here.
Sounds like I have a stutter. The other person that is on this podcast that you're either hearing or seeing is a man who always peels his bananas before he eats them. It is Hector Inahosa.
99% of the time, that's true.
Yep. Hector is a certified financial planner, which is the top mark in our industry. So, today's episode is all about Medicare.
Medicare, rite of passage. As we get close to 65, at about 64 and 6 months, your mailboxes will start getting filled by offers for Medicare. So we thought we'd tackle that today.
Yep. So we're going to talk about what it is, important dates and deadlines, different types.
Options you have, yeah.
Any question, theoretically, that you would ever have about Medicare, we are going to answer.
Say the most asked questions. Okay. We're going to try.
The frequently asked questions of Medicare.
Yeah.
If you have any specific questions that we don't tackle, you can contact us. We have a phone number and an email address, and that would be 888-792-6339 for phone number, or info@swandfw.net.
Alrighty.
So, before we do this, we have our news story of the week.
Okay.
As we are recording this, history is being made in the world of Major League Baseball.
I saw that this morning.
Yep. The guy's name is Danny Jansen, and he is going to make MLB history by playing for two different teams in the same game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And... as I understand it, he was batting. 3 months ago, or whenever it was, when they called the game off. So tell us how that happened and how often that's happened in MLB history.
So they were playing a game on June 26th, and in the second inning, it started to rain. Our guy, Danny Jansen, was up to bat, fouled a pitch off, and then they delayed the game because of rain, and then it just never stopped raining, so they suspended the game. It was a travel day, so the teams just left. They're going to resume it later. Today is the resume date.
Right.
Today being August 26th as we're recording it, 2 months later. Since then, a couple of things have happened. He's gotten traded from the Red Sox to the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
The other way. From the Blue Jays to the Red Sox.
Okay.
And the guy who was originally catching has been sent down to the minor leagues. So, with those two things in mind, he now is catching.
He'll be the starting catcher today for the other team.
Right.
But he'll be batting for the other team.
Right. Officially, we're going to look back at this in 100 years and be like, what happened?
How can you be hitting and catching at the same time?
But yeah, it's never happened before. It's pretty crazy that baseball's been around. I mean, we've been keeping records since the 1800s.
Over 100 years, yeah.
Every once in a while, you still get a thing that's never happened before.
Yeah, I've heard of... I remember way back in the maybe 30s or 40s, in a doubleheader, in between the two games, they swapped players. And so one guy played for one team on the first game, and then another team on the second game. But never this. This is truly amazing.
Yeah, it's literally a once in a lifetime.
Yeah. Once in two lifetimes, yeah.
Yeah, so it's an interesting little thing.
I wonder if he's 65. Do you think he's worried about Medicare?
I don't think he is, but his manager might be.
That's right. So let's talk about the manager then.
So, back to Medicare.
Not as exciting as baseball, but hey.
Right. But arguably, or not arguably, definitely more important to your everyday life as you get older.
That's right.
So, we're just going to cycle through some frequently asked questions.
Okay.
And we'll get into it. So the first thing I think that's important for people to understand is, what is it?
Yeah. So Medicare is something that we have paid for in our Medicare tax through our payroll tax. And it's basically, in its simplest terms, it's health insurance for most of us at age 65. When we turn 65, we'll be eligible to get health insurance through a program called Medicare. That's simple.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week.
Next question. Does it cost anything? Is it free?
It is not free for most of us. Now, there's going to be a lot of exceptions, but we're going to talk for most of us. Like I said, we have been paying for Medicare out of our payroll taxes. But when we turn 65, and we're going to get into the parts, there's two parts of Medicare, Part A and Part B. Part A is free. Part B costs today for most Americans about $174 a month. And that's kind of, if you think of, that's the premium that we'll pay. Now, for lower income folks and people that qualify for Medicaid, totally different program than Medicare, that may be lower or even paid for by the program. But for most of us, Medicare Part B is going to cost $174, and that's going to give us the health insurance coverage that Medicare is designed to do.
So let's talk about the different parts or different types. So there's like Part A, Part B, Part D, there's supplemental stuff.
There's
Medigap.
Yeah. So let's just kind of break it down. Original Medicare broke off into two parts, and you may be asking why. Don't know. But we just have to know that it's two different parts. Medicare Part A, if you think, to make it simple, think of buildings. Medicare Part A covers the hospitals, the rehab centers, the skilled nursing facilities. All of those things are covered by Medicare Part A. You become eligible for that for most of us at 65, and it's free. So we encourage people to sign up for Medicare Part A when they turn 65, or 2 to 3 months before they turn 65, because you're eligible to do that. That's Part A, the buildings. Part B, think of people. These are the doctors. These are the anesthesiologists. These are the nurses. This is all of the people that go to doing your health care. And all those folks are covered by Medicare Part B. And Part B is the thing that costs about $174 a month for it to kick in. And so that's again, real basic original Medicare. And that's how it starts. And so then you would be covered for health insurance if you did just that.
Yeah. Is there more to that?
There's much more. So what originally happened with the original Medicare is that in the health insurance, in that Part B, it covered to about 80% of coverage. So if you had a $10,000 bill at a hospital, it was going to cover about $8,000 of that. So there was gaps in your coverage, and insurance companies love gaps. And so very quickly, a whole industry was built. Remember, Medicare's only been around since like the mid-60s to cover those gaps, and it was called, and it is still called, Medigap insurance. It's an insurance policy that you buy from an insurance company to cover the gaps, and that's called Medigap. So on top of the 174, if you go with original Medicare, you're going to have a Medigap policy, and that's going to be anywhere from $100 to $200, just depending on who you choose. See? But wait, there's more, because the Medigap policy, for some reason, doesn't cover drugs. And so if you go original Medicare, 174, then you get a Medigap policy, another $100, $150. You need something to cover the drugs, and they call that Part D, D for drugs, Get that? Pretty
Yeah.
simple there. And then that's not very much. It's maybe $25 or a Cadillac Cadillac product would be around $50, but about $25, between $19 and $25 a month, gets you the drugs that you need. And there's a whole slew of different ones. So you want to make sure that you go to Medicare.gov, you put all the drugs in, and it will tell you buy this Part D plan from this insurance company. So that's really simple.
So all together, what are we looking at cost-wise? Depends on the person, obviously.
Yeah. Original Medicare is going to be Part B, $174, and then say another $125 or so for the Medigap policy, and then another $25 or so for the Part D policy. So you'd be looking at spending $275, $300 a month for insurance, and then you're pretty much well covered by buying the Part B, the Medigap, and then a Part D policy. So that is what we call original Medicare.
Is there more?
Well, of course there's more, because for $300 a month, that might be a challenge for many people. And it's still that $174 a month still doesn't cover the costs of Medicare. If you look at statistically where the deficit that Medicare is running, it's pretty substantial, and we're going to have to do something with that, like we're going to have to do with Social Security. But we need to do something with Medicare. So several years ago, more than 10 years ago now, they came out with Medicare Part C. Part C is also referred to as Medicare Advantage, is not original Medicare. Medicare Part C is a whole different way of you being covered for the same thing. An insurance company, you buy a Medicare Part C from an insurance company, and they've got a bunch of regs that they've got to meet for Medicare, but they offer you the same. They have to offer you the same insurance coverage, and with the caps, because it's going to be competitive, that you would get Medicare Part B and usually a Medigap policy, and usually Part D. So in a Medicare Advantage plan, you get the health insurance, and you get the doctors, and you get drugs, and you get a bunch of insurance companies that offer you a lot of different things, PPOs, HMOs, and all of those kind of things. And right now you can get many of these Medicare Advantage plans, and that's what you see on TV all the time. And there's a lot of zero premium. And they have zero deductibles, and so they're pretty good to look at. The downside with a Part C, because then the question comes, well, why wouldn't everybody do a Part C? Because with original Medicare, you can go to any doctor that takes Medicare. When you get a Part C, you're back into traditional insurance where you have networks. You got to make sure that your doctor and your specialist and all of those folks fit in those networks. The good part is that most folks, as America gets older, most doctors that are in treating older Americans go on Medicare because it's a large part of their business. But if you're thinking about, I don't want to do original Medicare, I want to do Medicare Advantage, you want to make sure that all of your doctors, or most of your doctors, especially your most important doctors, are on the network that you're the insurance company, and there's tons of insurance companies, so you'll be able to find them. So there you go.
So that was a lot of information.
A lot of information.
Let's backtrack
Okay.
a little bit. Let's talk about the difference between Medicare and Medicaid.
Okay.
That's a pretty common...
Yeah, people get that confused. Medicaid is for those that are substantially below the poverty line, have very few assets. So it's designed to cover those that are really struggling and older in America. There's no cost for that. Matter of fact, they pay for everything. But to qualify for Medicaid, you've got to have very little income and very few assets. And so for most of our clients and for most of Americans, we're not going to qualify for Medicaid. But all of us don't qualify for Medicare. Well, you do. You got to have 40 hours and all of that, or 40 quarters. But most of us have paid for Medicare. So that's the huge difference. And there are times that somebody will qualify for both Medicare and Medicaid, and especially if they're very, very sick. So there's a way the government is trying to figure out how to help those that don't have the assets and are getting really sick. And so there's a lot of different programs that we could spend the rest of the afternoon talking about. We're not going to do that.
Yep. So the next one we have written down here is, does it affect how much I can work?
It really doesn't. As a matter of fact, let's say that I'm age 65 today and I'm working for a company and I have health insurance, right? Mm-hmm. I have a couple of choices. I can just stay on their insurance, and that's fine. There's not going to be any penalty for me joining Medicare later because I had qualifiable insurance or insurance that was good. But I can also, at age 65, turn to Medicare and say, I have health insurance, but it's very expensive over here, and I think I would like to do the Medicare Part B and do a Medicare Advantage, and that's going to save me a bunch of money. Mm-hmm. You can do that too. Got to be real careful. Employers are scared when people do that because they don't want to be accused of pushing older Americans into Medicare, because if you want to stay on their plan, they have to keep you on their plan if you want to. So yeah, but how much you work or anything like that has absolutely no impact. Not like Social Security. This has absolutely no impact on how much you work or anything. Remember, you've paid for this, and so it's not it's not something that's given to you.
So you don't necessarily need to do or enroll or have Medicare. Like there are certain situations where you do not absolutely need to.
Right. If you have health, and that's the only situation. If you have health insurance somewhere else, usually your employer or maybe your spouse has, then you don't have to. What they don't want you doing is saying, well, I'm 65 years old and I'm pretty healthy, so I'm just going to wait till I get sick and then I'm going to enroll. If you do that, there's going to be a charge per year, and that charge lasts for the rest of your life. So you don't really want to do that because it's a pretty hefty penalty. So they're trying to keep you away. But so you have to prove that you have health insurance if you're not going to enroll. But let's say that I'm 65 years old, and I've decided that I'm retired or I'm close to retirement, or I work for myself and I want to get on Medicare. The challenge with sometimes if I'm the sole or the larger breadwinner and I have my entire family on my health insurance at work, and I go off of that to go to Medicare, most employers aren't going to let you just have your family and children. So there's a lot of things to look at before you make this decision, how it's going to affect you, your spouse, and your children. Well, let's assume that I'm 65 years old, my spouse has her own insurance, then when can I enroll? Well, when I turn 65, and 3 months before that, I'm eligible to start getting my Medicare card. And so that's what we encourage people. 90 days before it, you got to apply for Medicare to get your little card. Once you get your card, then you can choose either a Medigap policy, if you're going to stay on original Medicare, or choose a Medicare Advantage plan. Neither one of those can happen if you don't have your Medicare card and your Medicare number. So that's an important thing. And that's called, by the way, a special enrollment period, because you may be turning 65 in February. Terrific. So in December you can apply for your Medicare number, and in February you can go on Medicare.
So the magic number for enrolling is 65.
Yeah, for most Americans.
Process starts before that.
Yeah, 90 days before you're eligible to go ahead and apply for your Medicare card and Medicare number. And then you can apply for either your Medicare Advantage or your Medigap policy.
So are there any special dates for everyone?
Let's say that I took a Medicare Advantage plan and I enrolled last year in February because my birthday's in February, and I've had the plan and I hate it. Everything I was promised, this insurance company's not doing. I'm not getting, my doctor's mad at me because my bills aren't getting processed correctly. The network keeps getting smaller, and it's just every time we turn something in, it gets rejected I just thought, fine. If you're on a Medicare Advantage plan, every October, first week or second week in October through about the first or second week of December, there's a thing called open enrollment. And so I get to change my Medicare Advantage company. I can go to any other Medicare Advantage company. And so, so now I hated this company. I'm gonna do another one. So it's not a long-term commitment, and the insurance companies have to try to keep you happy because they don't make any money if you move. So they're trying real hard to keep you happy. What you can't do, I went to Medicare Advantage because it was cheaper, and I'm going to wait till I get sick, and then I'm going to go back to the original Medicare because you told me that I could go to any doctor, and I don't have deductibles and stuff like that in the original Medicare, so I'm going to do that. You can, but you got to qualify. Open enrollment, when you turn 65, no matter how sick you are, you can get either.
Yeah.
But if you try to come back to original Medicare with a Medigap policy, the Medigap policy is going to want you to qualify physically. They will underwrite you.
Yeah.
And that, so if you're thinking about doing that, do that from the beginning, because trying to come back is going to be harder.
Yep. So, obviously, that was a lot of information, and there is just so much more information that we could talk about.
Absolutely.
So, how we're going to do that is
call us.
Yeah, we have a couple different ways you can contact us. The first way is a phone number, and that is 888-792-6339. That's 888-SWAN-DFW. Or we have an email address that's info@swandfw.net. It's free to call, free to email.
Yeah, just one more thing, because sometimes when somebody says, that's the best advice you've ever given to me, I want to share that with other people. And I had a gentleman a couple of years ago say, that's the best advice you've ever given to me. And the advice was, once you choose a Medicare Advantage plan and you like it, in December, starting in September and in October, you're going to start getting all these Advantage plans sending you back. And I just told them, look, keep your insurance, anything that's from Medicare or your insurance company, the envelopes, keep those, read those. Everything else you can discard, because every October you're going to get flooded by all these insurance companies.
Yeah. So, give us a call, give us an email.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, thank you, and have a blessed day.
Catch you all in the next one.
The preceding content is informational only and based on information available when created. It is not an offer or solicitation, nor is it tax or legal advice. It does not consider your financial circumstances and objectives and may not be suitable for you.